Alex Reed couldn't help the small smile that touched his lips as he solved another complex coding issue that had stumped the entire engineering team for days. It was a familiar feeling, being steps ahead of everyone else. At 32 years old, with his MIT degree hanging in his apartment and 5 years at TechVision Solutions under his belt, Alex had grown used to being the smartest person in any room. The morning sun streamed through the windows of TechVision's Atlanta office as Alex took a sip of his black coffee. Around him, his co-workers chatted about weekend plans and family updates. Small talk that Alex rarely joined. His mind was always racing with algorithms and solutions, leaving little room for what he considered meaningless conversation. "Hey, did you hear the news?" asked Chen from the desk across from him. "The deal is final. Horizon Innovations has officially bought us." Alex looked up from his screen. "About time. Their resources could actually help us do something meaningful with my security protocol." Chen's friendly smile faltered slightly at Alex's choice of words. Not our project, but my protocol. It was these little things that made working with Alex challenging, despite his undeniable talent. The acquisition had been in the works for months, but today's confirmation sent a buzz of excitement and anxiety through the office. TechVision was a decent mid-sized company with some innovative ideas, but Horizon was in another league entirely. A tech powerhouse known for groundbreaking projects and exceptional workplace culture. Later that afternoon, the whole company gathered in the main conference room. Rodriguez, their director of operations, stood at the front with an uncharacteristically bright smile. "I've just received word that Horizon's leadership team will be visiting next Monday to meet everyone and discuss the transition plans. This is our chance to make a great first impression." While others nodded nervously, Alex's mind raced with possibility. This wasn't just a corporate transition. This was his ticket to bigger projects, more resources, and the recognition he deserved. If he could impress Horizon's executives with his latest security protocol, he might even skip a few rungs on the corporate ladder. "They'll be especially interested in our cybersecurity innovations," Rodriguez continued. "So let's make sure those presentations are polished." Alex raised his hand. "I can lead the technical demonstrations. My protocol is the most advanced piece of software this company has developed in years." A few eyebrows raised around the room. Technical lead Priya looked particularly annoyed. She had contributed significantly to the project, though Alex rarely acknowledged it. "We'll present as a team," Rodriguez said firmly. "But yes, your work will be highlighted, Alex." For the next 5 days, Alex practically lived at the office. He fine-tuned his code, created detailed visualizations of his security architecture, and practiced his presentation repeatedly. While others worried about the company culture meshing or whether there would be layoffs, Alex saw only opportunity. "You should go home and get some rest," suggested the night janitor on Sunday evening, finding Alex still at his desk at 10 p.m. "Big day tomorrow, right?" "Can't rest yet," Alex replied without looking up. Excellence doesn't happen by accident. What Alex didn't know, what nobody at TechVision seemed to know, was exactly who would be visiting them tomorrow. If he had bothered to research Horizon Innovations more thoroughly, he might have learned about its remarkable CEO, Darius Washington. At 45, Washington had built Horizon from nothing, overcoming barriers that would have stopped most people in their tracks. As a black entrepreneur in the overwhelmingly white tech industry, he had faced investors who wouldn't meet with him, partners who underestimated him, and competitors who didn't take him seriously, until they had to. Washington's journey hadn't been easy. Born to working-class parents in Philadelphia, he had earned scholarships through academic excellence, worked multiple jobs to put himself through college, and graduated with 2 engineering degrees. He had started Horizon in his garage with just 3 employees. Now, 15 years later, the company employed over 500 people and was valued at nearly $1 billion. But what truly set Washington apart in the industry wasn't just his technical background or business acumen. It was his leadership philosophy. While most tech companies talked about innovation, Washington believed innovation couldn't flourish without inclusion. He had built Horizon on the principle that great ideas come from diverse perspectives being truly heard. Talent is equally distributed. Opportunity is not. Washington often said in interviews, "Our job is to find brilliant minds wherever they exist and create space for them to do their best work." This philosophy had made Horizon not just successful, but also one of the most sought-after employers in the industry. Their workplace culture was famous for collaborative problem-solving rather than competitive showboating. If Alex had known any of this, he might have prepared differently for the meeting. He might have included his colleagues' contributions in his presentation. He might have thought about how to demonstrate teamwork alongside technical excellence. Instead, as Sunday night turned into Monday morning, Alex finally went home for a few hours of sleep, confident that tomorrow would be his moment to shine. He imagined impressing the executives, being offered a senior position at Horizon, perhaps even a significant raise. What he couldn't imagine was how completely wrong his assumptions would prove to be, or how a single interaction would change the course of his career forever. Alex woke up before his alarm on Monday morning. He'd barely slept, his mind racing with last-minute adjustments to his presentation. The sky was just beginning to lighten as he showered, dressed in his best charcoal suit, and carefully knotted his blue tie, the one he considered his lucky charm. The office was already humming with activity when he arrived at 7:30 a.m., a full hour and a half before the visitors were scheduled to appear. The cleaning staff had worked overtime to make everything spotless. Fresh flowers decorated the reception area, and the conference room had been transformed with a new arrangement of tables, forming a professional U-shape. "Morning," called Rodriguez as he rushed past with a stack of folders. "Looking sharp today, Alex." Alex nodded in acknowledgement as he headed straight to the conference room to set up his laptop and connect it to the projector. He ran through his slides one more time, adjusting a few transitions and making sure his demonstrations would run smoothly. By 8:45, other employees began filing in, dressed in their finest work attire. Priya, the technical lead who had worked alongside Alex on the security protocol, approached his station. "I brought the user flow diagrams you asked for," she said, placing a folder beside his laptop. "And I added notes about the encryption process." "Good," Alex replied without looking up, "though I simplified that section. The executives probably won't understand the technical details anyway." Priya pressed her lips together but said nothing. After 5 years of working with Alex, she'd learned when to save her breath. By 9 a.m., the conference room was filled with TechVision employees arranged according to department. Alex had strategically positioned himself at the inner corner of the U-shape directly opposite where the executives would sit, the perfect spot to make eye contact during his presentation. At precisely 9:05, Rodriguez's phone buzzed. "They're in the building," he announced to the room. "Everyone ready?" A nervous energy rippled through the gathering. Some people straightened papers, others adjusted their clothing. Alex remained still, outwardly calm despite his racing heart. 3 minutes later, the conference room door opened. First entered a tall woman in a tailored navy suit, her silver hair cropped short in an elegant style. Behind her walked a younger man with glasses, carrying a tablet and looking serious. And then, somewhat to everyone's surprise, a third person entered. A black man dressed not in a formal suit but in dark jeans, a light blue button-down shirt, and a casual blazer. He wore stylish but understated glasses and had a warm, confident smile as he glanced around the room. Rodriguez stepped forward immediately. "Welcome to TechVision. I'm Luis Rodriguez, Operations Director." He shook hands with all 3 visitors, then turned to address the room. "Everyone, please welcome our guests from Horizon Innovations." Before Rodriguez could introduce them individually, the silver-haired woman spoke up. "Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm Patricia Lin, Chief Financial Officer at Horizon. This is David Chen, our Chief Technology Officer, and let me introduce myself," the casually dressed man interrupted with a friendly smile. "I like to meet new team members directly." Patricia nodded respectfully and stepped back. Rodriguez gestured toward the head of the table. "We've prepared some refreshments and a brief company overview to start." "Actually," the man in the casual blazer said, "I'd prefer to mingle a bit first. Get a feel for what everyone's working on before the formal presentations." The Horizon. Trio separated, each approaching different sections of the room. Alex straightened his posture, ready for his moment, but the executives started with the product management team at the far end. He watched as the casually dressed man engaged deeply with each person, asking questions and listening intently to their answers. 15 minutes passed before anyone approached Alex's station. He'd been growing increasingly impatient, tapping his pen against his notepad. Finally, the man in the casual blazer walked over, alone, while the CFO and CTO were still engaged with other groups. The man glanced at Alex's laptop screen, which displayed the opening slide of his presentation. Next Generation Security Protocol, Revolutionizing Data Protection. That looks interesting, the man said, genuine curiosity in his voice as he leaned closer to see the screen. Mind telling me a bit about it? Alex looked up, taking in the man's casual attire and relaxed demeanor. A quick assumption formed in his mind. This must be some kind of assistant or maybe an IT person sent ahead to check on technical setups. Certainly not one of the executives. They would be in proper business attire, like the woman and the man with glasses. Alex glanced past the man, looking for someone who fit his mental image of leadership. I'll explain everything when the actual executives join us, he said with a dismissive wave. This is pretty complex engineering that requires a technical background to understand. Then, with a patronizing smile, he added, maybe you could grab us some coffee while we wait? Black, 2 sugars. The room went suddenly, eerily quiet. Across the table, Priya's eyes widened in horror. Rodriguez, who had been chatting with the CTO nearby, turned sharply. The CFO, Patricia, who had been examining marketing materials, looked up with an expression of shock. The casually dressed man's friendly expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. He studied Alex for a long moment, then extended his hand. I'm Darius Washington, he said, his voice calm and measured. CEO of Horizon Innovations. He paused, allowing the weight of those words to sink in. And I actually have 2 engineering degrees and 4 patents to my name, so I think I might be able to follow along with your explanation. The silence in the room deepened. Alex felt the blood drain from his face as the magnitude of his mistake crashed over him. His mouth opened, but no words came out. For several excruciating seconds, Alex stood frozen, his hand halfway extended to meet Darius Washington's firm handshake. The conference room felt unnaturally quiet. He could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning, the distant ring of a phone at the reception desk, even his own shallow breathing. I'm sorry, Alex finally stammered, his voice cracking slightly. I didn't realize. I thought, no need to explain, Darius said, his tone professional but noticeably cooler than before. Let's move forward with the meeting. He turned to Rodriguez. I believe you had an agenda prepared? Rodriguez quickly stepped in, his relief at the interruption obvious. Yes, absolutely. If everyone could take their seats, we'll begin with a company overview. As people shuffled to their places, Alex remained rooted to the spot, his face burning with shame. Priya shot him a look that combined sympathy with something else, a silent "I told you so," that reminded him of her many attempts to point out his habit of making assumptions about people. Somehow, Alex managed to make it to his seat. His carefully organized notes now seemed meaningless, his ambitious plans for impressing the executives shattered by a 10-second interaction. He glanced up to find Patricia Lynn, the CFO, studying him with undisguised disapproval. Rodriguez launched into his presentation, clicking through slides that highlighted TechVision's growth, client base, and core technologies. Alex tried to focus, but his mind kept replaying the humiliating exchange. Had he really just asked the CEO of a billion-dollar company to fetch him coffee? The memory made his stomach turn. And now, Rodriguez was saying, we'd like to showcase some of our current projects, beginning with our cybersecurity division. This was supposed to be Alex's moment. He had rehearsed his presentation countless times, perfecting every transition and explanation. Now, as all eyes turned to him, his mouth felt dry as sandpaper. He stood on unsteady legs and made his way, to the front of the room. Opening his laptop, he connected it to the projector and cleared his throat. "Good morning," he began, his voice sounding foreign to his own ears. "I'm Alex Reed, lead developer on our security protocol project." As he launched into his explanation, Alex found himself overcompensating, using increasingly technical jargon and complex terms, as if to prove his expertise after his embarrassing mistake. He noticed Darius Washington watching him intently, his expression giving nothing away. The neural network architecture allows for predictive threat analysis using advanced algorithm mapping, Alex explained, pointing to a diagram on the screen. He glanced at Darius, adding hastily, "Which means it can guess what hackers might do before they do it." The unnecessary simplification hung awkwardly in the air. David Chen, Horizon's CTO, raised an eyebrow. Alex plowed ahead, his presentation becoming increasingly disjointed as he alternated between overly technical explanations and condescendingly basic summaries. By the time he finished 20 minutes later, he was sweating through his carefully chosen shirt and the room felt suffocatingly tense. "Thank you, Alex," Rodriguez said, stepping forward quickly. "Next, we'll hear from our cloud integration team." During the break for lunch, Alex retreated to the hallway, leaning against the wall and loosening his tie as he tried to collect himself. He'd botched the presentation completely, turning what should have been his shining moment into another. "Disaster, you okay?" It was Priya holding 2 bottles of water. She handed one to Alex, who accepted it gratefully. "I completely destroyed any chance I had with Horizon, didn't I?" he asked, his voice low. Priya sighed. "It wasn't great," she admitted. "But maybe." Before she could finish, the door to the small conference room opened, and out stepped Rodriguez. His expression was grim as he spotted Alex. "Can I speak with you?" he asked, gesturing for Alex to follow him into an empty office nearby. Once inside, Rodriguez closed the door and turned to face him. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he asked, his normally friendly demeanor replaced with barely contained anger. "Darius Washington isn't just any CEO. He's revolutionized the tech industry with his approach to inclusion and respect in the workplace. He built Horizon from nothing, fighting through barriers and discrimination every step of the way. And you just reinforced every stereotype he's been battling his entire career." Alex felt sick. "I didn't mean it like that," he protested. "I just saw how he was dressed and assumed." "That's exactly the problem," Rodriguez cut in. "You assumed. You saw a casually dressed black man and decided he couldn't possibly be in charge. Do you have any idea how many times he's probably had that exact same experience?" The realization hit Alex like a physical blow. What he had dismissed as a simple mistake of confusing job roles suddenly appeared in a new, much more disturbing light. It wasn't about his race," Alex insisted, his voice weak even to his own ears. "It was the casual clothes. The other executives were wearing suits." Rodriguez shook his head. "Washington is known for his casual style. He believes people should be judged by their ideas and character, not their appearance. It's literally mentioned in every profile ever written." About him, Alex had no response. He hadn't bothered to research Horizon's leadership before the meeting, assuming his technical brilliance would speak for itself. "The afternoon session starts in 20 minutes, Rodriguez said, heading for the door. "I suggest you spend that time thinking carefully about how you can contribute to this company moving forward, if at all." Left alone, Alex sank into a chair, the full weight of the situation settling on him. He had always prided himself on his intelligence, on being the smartest person in any room. But today had revealed a massive blind spot in his understanding, one that no amount of technical knowledge could compensate for. His phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Horizon integration, afternoon session, 1:30 p.m. With a deep breath, Alex stood up and straightened his tie. The worst part wasn't over yet. He still had to face Darius Washington and the rest of the room for another 3 hours, knowing that his reputation, possibly his entire career, hung in the balance. Alex slipped back into the conference room just as people were settling in for the afternoon session. He chose a seat near the back, hoping to attract as little attention as possible. The morning's humiliation had left him drained, with a headache forming behind his eyes. The room had been rearranged during lunch. Now, a single long table stood at the front where Darius Washington and his executives sat facing the TechVision employees. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust particles floating in the air. Rodriguez stood to introduce the session. This afternoon, we'll hear from Horizon's leadership about their vision for our integration. I'm pleased to turn the floor over to CEO Darius Washington. Darius rose from his seat, buttoning his blazer as he moved to the center of the room. Despite his casual clothing, he commanded attention effortlessly, something Alex had failed to recognize earlier. Thank you all for your presentations this morning, Darius began, his voice warm but authoritative. I've been impressed by the innovation happening here at TechVision. Before we discuss specific integration plans, I want to share Horizon's core values and company culture with you. He clicked to the first slide, which displayed a simple statement: innovation through inclusion. At Horizon, we believe the best ideas come from environments where every voice is valued, Darius explained. Technical excellence is crucial, but equally important is creating spaces where diverse perspectives can flourish. Alex shifted uncomfortably in his seat as Darius continued. We've built our success on recognizing that brilliance doesn't look just one way or come from just one background. The traditional tech industry has often favored certain voices while excluding others. At Horizon, we've deliberately created a different model. The next slide showed a graph comparing industry diversity statistics with Horizon's much more balanced numbers. These aren't just feel-good metrics, Darius said, pointing to the screen. Our diverse teams consistently outperform industry averages in innovation, problem-solving, and client satisfaction. When people feel respected and heard, they bring their best ideas forward. Alex found himself unable to look away as Darius moved through his presentation. The CEO spoke without notes, clearly passionate about the company he had built. He described how Horizon had grown from a small startup to an industry leader by nurturing talent from underrepresented groups and creating collaborative rather than competitive team structures. We've found that the genius programmer working alone model actually produces weaker results than collaborative teams, where different strengths complement each other, Darius explained. Alex winced, recognizing himself in the description. For years he'd prided himself on being that solo genius, often refusing help or input from colleagues. After 30 minutes outlining Horizon's philosophy, Darius paused. The room had been silent, everyone absorbed in his words. He took a sip of water, then set the glass down deliberately. Now I want to address something directly, he said, his tone shifting slightly. I believe in transparency, so I'm not going to pretend this morning's interaction didn't happen. Alex felt his face burning again as several people glanced in his direction. In my 20 years in tech, Darius continued, I've often encountered people who underestimate me or make assumptions based on how I look. Sometimes it's about race, sometimes it's about my casual style, often it's both. What some might dismiss as an honest mistake reflects deeper patterns that harm our industry and limit our potential. He let the words hang in the air for a moment, before continuing. I don't share this to embarrass anyone. I share it because these moments are learning opportunities, chances to recognize our blind spots. The tech industry has brilliant minds solving incredible technical problems every day. Yet we still struggle with these basic human interactions. Darius walked slowly around the table, making eye contact with various TechVision employees. At Horizon, we expect excellence in both technical skills and human understanding. We believe you can't have true innovation without both. The integration of our companies will involve some changes, not just in reporting structures or project management, but in how we work together. He clicked to a new slide showing a transition timeline. Over the next 3 months, we'll be establishing new team structures. Patricia will outline the details, but I want to emphasize that leadership in the new organization will be based on both technical capability and demonstrated ability to collaborate, mentor, and build inclusive teams. As Patricia took over to Explain the specifics. Alex felt a growing sense of dread. The message was clear. His technical skills alone wouldn't secure his position in the new company structure, and after this morning's display, his prospects looked increasingly grim. Patricia described how several transition teams would be formed to handle different aspects of the integration: technical systems, client relationships, product roadmaps, and cultural alignment. Each team would have leaders from both companies working together. "We'll be announcing the leadership assignments for these teams today," she said, clicking to the next slide. "We've selected individuals who we believe exemplify both technical excellence and Horizon's values." Alex held his breath as the names appeared on screen. He scanned the list once, twice, then a third time, but his name was nowhere to be found. Instead, he saw Priya listed as technical lead for security integration, alongside several other colleagues, whose contributions he had frequently downplayed. A hollow feeling spread through his chest. He'd been passed over completely, not even included as a team member, let alone a leader. The message couldn't have been clearer. There was no place for him in the future of this company. As the assignments were discussed, Alex noticed Darius watching him from across the room. Their eyes met briefly, and Alex saw not anger, but something more unsettling. Disappointment mixed with calm assessment, as if Darius had taken his measure and found him wanting in ways that went far beyond technical skill. And finally, Darius said, taking back the presentation for the conclusion, "Effective immediately, we will be implementing a comprehensive inclusion training program as part of our integration process. This isn't just about checking boxes. It's about creating the foundation for the combined company we want to build together." As the meeting wrapped up and people began to disperse, Alex remained seated, unable to move. The future he had imagined, just this morning, leading major projects at Horizon, advancing rapidly in the larger company, had evaporated. In its place was uncertainty and the dawning recognition that his greatest weakness wasn't technical at all, but something much more fundamental about how he saw the world and the people in it. The weeks following the fateful meeting passed in a blur of awkward interactions and growing isolation. Alex found himself increasingly sidelined as the integration teams formed and began their work. His usual confidence abandoned him, replaced by a constant gnawing uncertainty about how to behave around his colleagues. Priya, now leading the security integration team, had invited him to join their first meeting more out of politeness than necessity. Alex sat quietly in the corner as she expertly guided the discussion, addressing complex issues he would have once dominated. When he did offer a suggestion, the room didn't fall silent in awe as it once might have. Instead, people nodded, considered his input alongside others, and moved on. The hallway conversations stopped when he approached. Lunch invitations dried up. Even the simple good mornings became less frequent as people instinctively gave him a wide berth, not out of malice but from the discomfort that follows public humiliation. 3 months into the transition, a company-wide email announced the completion of the first phase of integration. New organizational charts were attached, showing the permanent structure of the combined company moving forward. Alex scrolled through the document with mounting dread, finally finding his name buried deep in the technical support team, a significant demotion from his former position. The following morning, a calendar invitation appeared in his inbox. Meeting with HR, 2 p.m. He knew what was coming. The HR office was on the 5th floor, in what had once been a storage room but was now hastily converted to accommodate the expanded department. Renee, the HR director for the integrated company, greeted him with professional courtesy but little warmth. "Alex, please have a seat," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "As you know, we've been reviewing all positions as part of the final integration phase." Alex nodded, his mouth dry. "I'll be direct," Renee continued. "Your position is being eliminated in the restructuring. Today will be your last day with the company." Despite having anticipated this outcome, hearing the words spoken aloud hit Alex like a physical blow. "I see," he managed to say. "Your severance package." Renee slid a folder across the desk. 2 months' salary plus compensation for unused vacation time. Your benefits will continue through the end of next month. Alex took the folder mechanically. Can I ask, was this decision related to what happened at the meeting with Darius Washington? Renee's expression remained carefully neutral. Company. Restructuring always involves difficult decisions based on multiple factors. It wasn't really an answer, but it was answer enough. As Alex cleared out his desk, he could feel eyes watching him from cubicles and offices around the floor. No one approached, not even to offer empty platitudes or uncomfortable goodbyes. 5 years of work, reduced to a cardboard box of personal items and a plant that had seen better days. His final walk through the office felt endless. Passing the main conference room, the scene of his downfall, Alex glanced inside to see Darius Washington himself meeting with the transition team. Through the glass he could see Priya presenting something, her hands moving animatedly as she explained a concept. Darius was nodding, clearly engaged with her ideas. For a brief moment Darius looked up and their eyes met through the glass. There was no triumph in the CEO's expression, no satisfaction at Alex's fate, just a simple acknowledgement of what might have been, of lessons learned too late. Alex turned away and continued toward the exit. The weight of the cardboard box in his arms, nothing compared to the weight of realization pressing down on him. The job hunt that followed was humbling. His technical skills opened doors for interviews, but something had shifted in how he presented himself. The arrogance that had once been his trademark was gone, replaced by a quieter confidence and, most surprisingly to those who had known him before, an ability to listen. 6 months. After leaving TechVision, Alex found himself in a small, cluttered office interviewing for a mid-level position at a startup called Novatech. The company was much smaller than either TechVision or Horizon, with just 20 employees working in an open-plan space that smelled faintly of coffee and dry erase markers. What made Novatech unique, however, was its leadership team. The founder and CEO was a young woman named Jun Kim, who had started the company after facing discrimination at her previous workplace. Her co-founder was Raj Patel, a brilliant developer who used a wheelchair and had created the company's core technology, after being told his ideas weren't mainstream enough for larger firms. The interview had gone well until June asked the question Alex had been dreading. Why did you leave your previous position? He could have given the easy answer, corporate restructuring, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the genuine curiosity in June's eyes, or maybe it was simply time to own his mistake. I made an assumption about someone based on how they looked, Alex said slowly. It was the CEO of the company that acquired us, and I didn't recognize him because he was dressed casually. He was also black, and I'm still trying to understand how much that played into my assumptions. Jun raised her eyebrows, clearly not expecting such honesty. I asked him to get me coffee, Alex continued, wincing at the memory. It was a terrible mistake and it cost me my job. But more importantly, it made me realize I had blind spots I'd never acknowledged before. A silence fell over the room as June and Raj exchanged glances. What have you learned from this experience? Raj asked finally. Alex took a deep breath. That being the smartest person in the room doesn't matter if you can't see the value in others. That my technical skills were only one part of what makes a good engineer, and maybe not even the most important part. That I have biases I never recognized and I need to actively work on them. Jun nodded slowly. That's refreshingly honest. Most people would have given us some vague answer about seeking new challenges. I tried that in my first few interviews, Alex admitted with a small smile. It didn't feel right. And honestly, if you're looking for someone who thinks they know everything and doesn't need to learn from others, I'm not that person anymore. 2 weeks later, Alex started at Novatech as a senior developer, a step down from his previous role, but a fresh start. The company's open culture and diverse team challenged him daily to listen more and assume less. When he encountered ideas he didn't initially understand, he asked questions instead of dismissing them. When colleagues from different backgrounds shared perspectives, he found himself learning approaches he would never have considered. Meanwhile, the story of the engineer who mistook the CEO for support staff had become something of a cautionary tale in Atlanta's tech circles. Darius Washington occasionally referenced it in industry speeches about inclusion, though he never named Alex directly. At a tech conference a year later, Alex sat in the audience as Darius delivered the keynote address on building inclusive company cultures. After the speech, people crowded around the CEO for handshakes and business cards. Alex waited until the crowd thinned, then approached. Darius recognized him immediately. "Mr. Reed," he said with a slight nod. "Mr. Washington," Alex replied. "I wanted to thank you." Darius looked genuinely surprised. "For what exactly?" "For the lesson," Alex said simply. "It was painful but necessary. I'm a better engineer because of it, and a better person." Darius studied him for a moment, then offered his hand. "That's the whole point," he said. "Not punishment, but growth." As they shook hands, Alex realized the journey from that humiliating day to this moment of understanding had changed the course of his life and career, not in the way he had once feared, but in ways he was only now beginning to truly appreciate.